YouTube, we need to talk about Mulan. So Disney has just released Mulan to Disney Plus, and it is $30 to watch. And there are a couple of different things we need to talk about Mulan. The first will be whether or not it's even a good idea to make live action movies of previous cartoon movies that Disney has already done. The second thing we need to talk about is the politics of it. I usually don't get political on this channel, but today is going to be an exception to that rule. The third thing we need to talk about is the actual ballad of Mulan. I wanted to make this video because I have a lot of friends, both Chinese and American, asking me my opinion on this stuff. And a lot of you are probably wondering why, so let me explain. 我在高中学的时候开始学习中文，我学习2年在亚利桑那州，然后我的家庭搬家到中国，在大连中国，然后我在中国高中学毕业了，以后呢，我来到了大学，在爱德华州，我传教了，在香港我做的普通话的传教，就是说汉语，负责那些说普通话的人，大部分是大学学生，还有工作搬家的人。传教以后，我回到了爱德华州，然后在大学继续学习中文，所以因为我的经历是在香港还有在中国，很多人要问我对这个Mulan的影片感觉怎么样？ So I thought I'd share. So first off, Disney live actions. They're fun. They're cool. I don't think a lot of them have been executed as well as they could have. Now, I have to say, I adore the live action Cinderella. I think it took everything great from the cartoon and everything great from the movie Ever After, and it was able to combine them. I know Ever After is not Disney, but I feel like it took the best elements of the stories that have been told of Cinderella and combined it into just this magical experience. Now, part of that, I will admit, is Haley Atwell is Cinderella's mom. So they got that going for them because I am a huge Agent Carter fan. And second of all, the costumes were just incredible in that one, especially the blue dress. We all know the blue dress in that movie. I don't even have to throw in a picture of it because it's the blue dress. I mean, come on. So yeah, I really like what was done with that live action remake. And then there's Beauty and the Beast. And Beauty and the Beast was a fair attempt, I guess. The costumes were inaccurate and lackluster. Granted, the Cinderella costumes were also inaccurate. They had already established in the Cinderella thing that it was a made-up fantasy world, and so there's nothing for it to be accurate to. Whereas in Beauty and the Beast, they very, 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 very clearly have established this is France in this time period. And it didn't work. The auto-tune was very apparent. The costumes were inaccurate. I'm not going to get into that entirely because there are better videos on that. I think it's alright for Disney to try and revamp some of their old stories, but they have to do something different and something the same with each of them. They need to pull in their own stuff, and it has to be different enough that I'm not just watching the same thing. Let's talk about Lion King. Lion King live action. First off, nothing there is live action. I don't know why it was marketed as such. It should have been called the CGI Lion King. And it was basically exactly the same. I really didn't see a reason to watch it. I only saw it on Disney Plus because I thought, hey, I haven't watched it yet. Let's talk about Mulan. I think when Mulan came out, it was one of the highlights of my childhood. I remember my siblings and I, we could never agree on a movie to watch until Mulan. And then we watched the crap out of the animated Mulan. Like so many times. I can remember multiple nights on weekends pulling the bed out of the couch with my siblings and having all the lights off and having like popcorn and other stuff, and we would just watch Mulan over and over and over until we all fell asleep. And oh man, great memories. And quote so much of it to you. I could sing you all the songs. It's a good movie, and it was one of those where as a child, I was very impressed with the protagonist. I couldn't understand the storytelling elements of it at the time. But looking back on it, I can see that to have a Disney female protagonist who was a warrior and who loved her family and was just loyal to her country and wanted to do good and wanted everything to work out so that her father could be okay. Like that was such a great influence on me as a child. And that was long before I knew that I would ever have lived in China. Long before I ever would have thought that I would have learned how to speak Mandarin. And it was already one of my favorite movies of all time. I started to understand those storytelling elements a little bit later when my mom was trying to show them to me by comparing Mulan to Snow White. And we talked about how they were different and how they had their different journeys, but one of them really fought for herself and the other had to be saved. Not that that's a bad thing, but personally I think that if you're going to have a love interest and saving someone, they need to save each other a few times. That's just my opinion. That's how I've written my protagonist in my book. But yeah, that was the start of my understanding that some protagonists are different, and that was the reason why, is the strength of character. When I heard about the live-action Mulan being announced, I was so excited. I couldn't wait. I think it was before Beauty and the Beast had come out, and so my only experience at this point with live-action Disney films had been the Cinderella one, and I just had this feeling that the Mulan live-action would be incredible. But I was worried. I was worried because Disney is a Western company, and I was worried that they would change it and put in a diverse amount of characters, which is funny because nowadays we talk about diversity, like everyone wants diversity in their movies, in their stories, in everything. But sometimes to keep something best it can be, you need to have that solid world building where there's just not foreigners. So then Disney announced that the entire cast would be Asian. I don't remember if they said they would all be Chinese, but I know that the entire cast is Asian, and I was psyched. I couldn't believe it. I was just like, okay, they're doing it right. They're not throwing any white people in there because that wouldn't make any sense. They're not throwing a bunch of random whatever in there. And I found out that the director wanted to try and make it better and fix the cultural mistakes that had been made in the cartoon Mulan. Some of those mistakes include fashion mistakes. And as someone who sews costumes, I'm actually really interested in fashion history in different countries. It interests me because I feel like clothing is a way for us to connect to people of the past. It's a way for us to understand what resources they had available, what life would have been like, because the functionality of a garment helps explain part of what the life of a person will have been like. In the cartoon, they had costumes from all different dynasties, and it wasn't noticeable to me as a child, and it's still, unfortunately, hard to notice because that's not the culture I grew up in. But I want you to imagine for a second that there was a cartoon where someone was wearing a Victorian tailored suit and the person next to them was wearing a suit of armor. And we're supposed to believe that they live in the same time period and that both of those outfits are normal and necessary. That's basically the kind of feeling that people living in China who'd grown up with that history got from watching the cartoon version of Mulan. Which is frankly not that great. That's a little embarrassing, but I mean, Disney's improved a lot. You look at Moana and they actually had people to make sure that things were culturally correct. And I believe they've done sort of the same thing with this one. I know that they've included fantastical elements and stuff, and the costume designers have worked really hard on the costumes for this, but I don't think it'll run into those same issues. That doesn't mean it doesn't have issues, though. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of this. We're gonna get political. Hong Kong. Hong Kong is on the bottom edge of China in the South Sea there, and South Chinese Sea, I mean, and it's in political upheaval right now, due to history and stuff. Oh gosh, I'll link a video. There's someone who explains this much better than I can, but basically, Hong Kong has been a free democratic state of its own for a long, long time, pretty much ever since the Opium Wars ended. And I'm typing rebellion and all of that. But basically, China is getting Hong Kong back, and they are losing their freedom. And there have been protests and between the police and the citizens, because the citizens, of course, don't want to give up their freedom. Like, who would want to give up their freedom? And yeah, so as I'm sure you know, the lead actress who's playing Mulan has voiced her support of the Hong Kong police. Now, before I say anything else, before I go anywhere with this, I am pro-democracy, and I want Hong Kong to remain free. When I lived there as a missionary, I made friends who were native Hong Kong people. I have many friends who live there. I have strong connections to there, and I know that those people's lives who I care about will be changed. And they will lose their freedoms if China takes over. That being said, I was serving Mandarin speakers in Hong Kong, and the majority of them were only there temporarily. So I have friends who agree with the other side of this argument, friends that I also care about and love, and whose opinion I disagree with, but they're entitled to that opinion, just like any of us are entitled to our political opinions as well. Now, here's the thing. I don't know if she actually believes that, and I read up on her on Wikipedia, and she has lived in democratic countries, so that surprises me. But at the same time, she is a Chinese actress, and her career basically depends 90% on mainland China and how she's received there. So she disagrees with the ideals that the majority of people are either going to be pressured into or actually believe, or were raised to believe. If she goes against those ideals, then she loses most of her audience and goes from being one of the top actresses to someone who will just be in movies that no one's going to care about. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do, and I'm not saying that she absolutely doesn't believe in what she's saying. I don't know. I don't know her. I haven't met her. But just looking at it from that standpoint, I would say that she's protecting herself and her future success in filmography. So, I don't know. Here's the other thing. There's the whole boycott Mulan thing going on right now, and a ton of my friends are on board with it. And I think that's great. They want to show that they are pro-democracy, that they are pro-Hong Kong. They want to do their thing. That's awesome. Not watching Mulan is not going to do anything to help that. Because despite the fact that Liu Yifei has said that she does not support Hong Kong and that she does support the Hong Kong police, it's more of a voiced opinion. I can find nothing online linking any funds going from Mulan to the Hong Kong police. The other thing is, she's not the only person in the movie. If she was, it'd be a dang boring movie. Like, holy crap. No one would care if there was only one person in the movie. It's not a monologue. As we said before, the entire cast is Asian, and I'm sure that their political views range just as widely as any other large demographic of people. There's going to be actors and actresses in the cast who support a free Hong Kong. There's going to be actors and actresses in the cast who support the Hong Kong police and communist China. I have friends who are communist. I have friends who are pro-democracy Hong Kong. They're all my friends. I don't care what they believe. They're people that I care about. When I first saw Yifei's opinions, I was disappointed. I will say that. And I seriously had to consider whether I was going to jump on board with Boycott Mulan with a lot of my friends on social media. But the more I've thought about it, the more I've decided it makes no difference whether or not I boycott Mulan, because that's not how you vote. And it's not going to affect anything in China. It's going to affect the wallet of one Chinese actress, and who's the main character, and the wallet of a lot of other Chinese actors and actresses, and mainly it's going to benefit Disney. We're all in Disney's pocket anyway, so what are we going to do about that? Anyways, I don't know if I'm going to watch it on Disney Plus, because for two people, my husband and I, to watch it, that's a lot of money. We typically will go to movies, well, before the pandemic, we would go to movies on Tuesdays for matinees, and it would only cost us, depending on which theater we went to, $5 to $8 total for both of us. Like, one theater is $2.50 on Tuesdays for matinees, and the other is $4 on Tuesdays for matinees. So, like, we try not to spend too much money on going to movies. But, I mean, if we decide we want to watch it, then we'll watch it. I'm not saying that boycotting something is useless and bad. And I'm not telling you you have to watch Mulan. I'm just saying that it doesn't matter in the political arena whether you watch Mulan or not, because it's more than one person who created it. It's more than one person who's put all this effort into it. I want to, as a storyteller, show my support for culturally correct movies and culturally correct casts and female directors, and there's so much good going on here that is also being supported by watching it, by not boycotting it. So, I don't know, you could say I'm stuck in the middle. I just don't see a reason to not watch it aside from the price point. Okay, let's talk about something else. Let's talk about the changes that we know have been made to the movie. First big one that everyone is up in arms about in the comments section on everywhere is Mushu. Mushu is not in the live action. Well, guess what? He wasn't in the original ballad either. He is a creation of the animation and exists nowhere else in the Chinese storytelling of Mulan. Because Mulan, like Cinderella, like Snow White, like any of those other fairy tales we know and love, is first and foremost a Chinese legend. Now, there are some places that claim her to be a real person, but that is also based off of the ballad of Mulan, which I will read to you in a video following this one, because this one's going to be really long, I'm guessing. So, yeah. I love Mushu as a character. He's hilarious. But I agree, I don't think he really has a place in the live action. They added a witch, and people are saying, why is there a witch? There wasn't a witch here, and there's not a witch in the ballad. True. But if you read any other Chinese legends, witches are actually kind of common in Chinese folklore. And they're not the same kind of witches we have, as you've probably seen from trailers, or if you've actually watched Mulan, the witch in there, and I haven't seen the movie yet, she is a shapeshifter, and she kind of takes on the hawk from the cartoons, but also the villain. And I think that what they've done here from a storytelling perspective is really cool, because they've made it so that Mulan is not the only female that's fighting, and they've made it so that the only female ally she could have happens to be on the opposite side. And I love how in the trailers they are using that dynamic to try and put doubt into Mulan's mind. And I don't know if that's what's actually going on, because again, I haven't seen it, but I think that is a cool storytelling dynamic that they've thrown in there. The other thing is Shang. Shang is gone. I'm okay with that. Shang doesn't make sense in the fact that his name is that, because that ang sound, long A with an ng on the end, does not actually exist in the Chinese language. It's an ong sound, like people say Shanghai, but if you live in China, you call it Shanghai. It would be like calling New York, New York, every time you said it. If all foreigners said New York and put a ah in there instead of an o, that's basically what we do to Shanghai. It's just cringy once you understand the language and the linguistics and how it works. Obviously, we're not going to change the world and get everyone to say it correctly, but yeah, so to have a character named Shang doesn't really make sense. And I don't know if Mulan gets a love interest in the new live action, but I don't think that it's necessary. I don't think she needs one. Yeah, I think Shang was a cool character in the cartoon, but the cartoon catered to an audience that was used to Disney love dynamics. And I feel like the Disney audience has changed between Brave and Frozen and Moana. We're getting used to princesses and warriors and all of that who fight for themselves, who don't need a man. It doesn't have to be a love story. So I'm okay with that. So no Mushu, I'm okay with. Witch, I'm okay with. No Shang, I'm okay with. And frankly, that's just because of how much I've learned and studied about Chinese culture. I'm not saying that we need to completely replace the cartoon. I'm saying they can live side by side and share different things and show different aspects of this legend. So when I originally thought of this video idea like months and months and months ago, because I was going to do it when Mulan was originally going to come out earlier, it got delayed, right? I feel like it got delayed. I had written a script and I ended up deleting the script, so I'm just kind of shooting the breeze here. I'm not following a script. I'm kind of remembering what was in it. But yeah, in conclusion, I'm excited for the live action Mulan. I'm disappointed that it has become a political tool to divide people between democracy and communism. But I also think that it doesn't really determine anything. I think that Ife does not want to isolate herself from the audience that made herself famous and lose ratings within China, which has way more people than Hong Kong in it. I think that her career will continue to primarily be in Eastern films, as it has been in the past. And I think that the changes they're making to the live action from the cartoon version are perfectly justified and fine. Join me in my next video to hear the original Ballad of Mulan as translated into English through Yale University Press. I will be sharing that with you shortly. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. I typically don't do videos like this. I typically do writing videos and costume videos, but I wanted to share this. If you want me to talk more about different storytelling elements, let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe so you know when I upload. Thanks for watching. Bye. But there's a floof in the air.